So basically, we have the Water Tribe, the Earth Kingdom, the Fire Nation, and the Air Nomads. Each group can bend or manipulate their respective elements, but in every generation, a person is born to one of the groups with the ability to bend all 4 elements. This individual is known as the Avatar. On a random Thursday afternoon, Firelord Sozin decides he wants all the smoke, so he starts a war and does a big genocide on the Air Nomads. Luckily, Aang escapes and traps himself inside of a giant iceberg. 100 years later, Katara and Sokka find Aang at the Southern Water Tribe. Aang is the Avatar, by the way. Just in case I didn't mention that. Zuko, the banished prince of the Fire Nation with immense daddy issues who has to capture the Avatar in order to restore his honor, spots their location and begins his chase. In order to stop the Fire Lord and end the war, Aang has to master the remaining 3 elements before Sozin's comet arrives.
Sozin's comet will return by the end of this summer, and Firelord Ozai will use its power to finish the war once and for all. Mastering the elements takes years of discipline and practice. But if the world is to survive, you must do it by summer's end.
They spent season 1 or book 1 water making their way to the Northern Water Tribe so Aang and Katara can train under a waterbending master. Along his journey to the Northern Water Tribe, the show takes special care to emphasize the importance of Aang learning the elements in a specific order, because even though he meets a lot of earthbending masters who would love to train him, he cannot master earth until he has organically transitioned from an element as light as air to one as fluid as water. To jump from a peaceful and calm element such as air right into a rough and rigid element such as earth would present an unrelenting cascade of unforeseen consequences.
Before learning firebending, you must learn water and earth. Water is cool and soothing. Earth is steady and stable.
This is best illustrated when Aang skips water, skips earth, and jumps from air right into learning fire. His lack of experience and patience as a result of learning the fluidity of water and the rigidity of earth results in him being grossly unprepared to handle the chaotic nature of fire, which leads him to burn Katara the first time he tries to firebend.
Katara, I'm so... I told you we shouldn't mess around with this! Look what you did! You burned my sister!
And also on their journey, Sokka's toxic masculinity is challenged.
Where are the men who ambushed us?
There were no men. We ambushed you.
Wait a second, there's no way a bunch of girls took us down.
A bunch of girls, huh?
And he unlearns his internalized misogyny by training with the Kyoshi warriors.
I would be honored if you would teach me.
Even if I'm a girl?
I'm sorry if I insulted you earlier. I was wrong.
Anyway, they finally make it to the Northern Water Tribe, and after literally fighting her way through the patriarchal misogynistic traditions of the North...
You didn't tell me your friend was a girl. In our tribe, it is forbidden for women to learn waterbending.
Katara and Aang are finally able to learn from a master. Then, the Fire Nation attacks. Admiral Zhao attempts to completely destroy the moon in order to defeat the waterbenders because of racism.
If you have any illusions about employing that brutish savagery that passes for bending among you people, forget them.
Aang turns into a big blue spirit kaiju. Sokka makes out with the moon for some reason, and then they carry on with their journey. In season 2 or book 2, Earth, he ends up meeting this blind girl named Toph who teaches him earthbending, and since Earth is the polar opposite of air as water is to fire, the show takes special care to show you just how much he struggles to bend the rigid element as opposed to how easy it was for him to manipulate the fluidity of water. He eventually gets into it, obviously, and just as it was established in season 1 that compromising the moon destabilizes the waterbenders, the same principle of solar destabilization is applied to the firebenders in season 2 as Team Avatar plot to defeat the Fire Lord on the day of a solar eclipse. Along the way, Toph invents metal bending, which is so cool.
Have I ever mentioned how sweet it is that you invented metal bending?
You could stand to mention it more.
And the way the show handles it is really interesting because metal is basically earth in its purest form, and because the style of bending is so brand new, it's still in its barbaric and archaic phase, so she needs to be a lot more hands-on with the metal. She doesn't just instantly start manipulating metal with telekinesis the same way she manipulates the earth. Well, at least not yet. It takes time to develop mastery in a new skill, and the show portrays that process really well. It's a very realistic, efficient, and believable way of dealing with a completely fictional concept. Season 2 ends with Zuko betraying his uncle to join ranks with his evil sister Azula, and Aang getting fatally injured as a sort of serialized second act low point. And Season 3, aptly titled Fire, opens with the team entering the Fire Nation in preparation for the aforementioned solar eclipse invasion. Thematically keeping in line with Season 1 titled Water, which was all about getting to the Northern Water Tribe, and Season 2 titled Earth, which was about seeking refuge in various Earth Kingdom strongholds. The day of the eclipse finally arrives, but the Fire Lord is hidden within an underground bunker. Zuko finally realizes what we've all known since day one, which is that his dad never loved him, so he goes on to join Team Avatar. Azula uses a series of psychological and emotional manipulation techniques to keep Team Avatar from getting to her father. Then, when Sokka rescues his dad from prison, Azula finally learns the painful lesson that bonds built with love are always going to be stronger than bonds built with fear. This is no better exemplified than in this scene where Mai helps Zuko and Sokka escape because she loves Zuko more than she fears Azula, and Ty Lee helps Mai escape because she loves her friend more than she fears her tyrant. This whole thing is just a perfect personification of the concept of game theory being immensely and just entirely superior to the whole dark triad personality type, which basically just means that being cooperative, being firm, being forgiving, and being honest is always going to be better than being a narcissistic Machiavellian psychopath. Zuko finally reunites with his uncle and finds out even though he betrayed him and treated him like trash for so many years, his uncle never stopped loving him. The comet finally arrives, Zuko and Katara defeat Azula, Uncle Iroh takes back Ba Sing Se, Aang defeats the Fire Lord and takes away his bending, which is... whoo! Zuko becomes the Fire Lord and Katara makes out with Aang. You know, the fact that they were able to weave in themes like racial injustice, toxic masculinity, tribalism, sexism, betrayal, redemption, sacrifice, self-reflection, self-actualization, hypnotically induced and reinforced mass propaganda on a national scale, true, unwavering, limitless, and irrefutably unconditional love and paternal childhood trauma, all into a silly kids show about rocks and fire is so impressive. Anyway, that's it. Subscribe Patreon, give money. Thank you.